Sunnahfollowers, protectors of the Sunnah. Sunnahfollowers, protectors of the Sunnah. Wassalam ala wa Rasulullah. Today we're going to begin discussion of menses or menstruation. And we're going to focus on what qualifies as menses and what is forbidden for the woman to do on her menses. And again, everything that I'm teaching you, I am not teaching you from a book written by Imam so-and-so. I am not teaching you from a book written by Sheikh so-and-so. I am teaching you from direct take. What I am teaching you is coming directly from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The book I am using are his hadiths, the sayings and the doings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I am giving you the understanding of the companions, not the understanding of Sheikh Come a Dime a Dozen or Imam Google or Mr. Famous. I'm giving you the way the companions understood that first generation who Allah says is the best of this nation. Allah says no one understands this deen better than they did. And this is the problem today. Why is it that we have Muslim women who don't even know what a menses is? Why is it that we have Muslim women who believe that there's a maximum number of days to bleed? It's because they're being taught by men who, first of all, don't even understand what menses is because they don't have one. And number two, these men are taking their information from schools of thought or imams or sheikhs instead of taking it from learning from what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, or having that understanding of those companions. So we're going to go over the next few days. We're going to go into great detail about menses. I'm going to teach you about a woman's period as the Prophet taught. I'm going to give you the understanding of his wives and his companions. And you can't go and buy no book that I'm teaching from. And I'm not teaching from a book. I'm teaching from the authentic Sunnah, the hadiths. Everybody understand that? So let's get started. First of all, again, what does menses mean? When we speak about menstruation, menses refers to the discharge of blood that comes from a woman's vagina. And this blood does not happen as a result from her giving birth, nor is it happening as a result of losing her virginity. It's the flowing blood that flows from her vagina. That's what menses refers to. And now the big question, what age qualifies a girl for her menses? Well, the agreed upon age by all the scholars for menses is 9 years old. If a girl sees blood flowing from her vagina at that age, it thus marks puberty for her. She is now a woman. That is a menses. That means she can get pregnant. So you better talk to your girls about the birds and the bees, because if she has intercourse, she can get pregnant. And again, not all girls have a period at 9. Some do. Some don't have one till they're 13. Some don't even have a menses until they're 15. So again, the age can vary depending on the part of the world you live in, the climate, and also what's hereditary within your family. Okay? Most women in the Middle East get their menses at 9 and 10 years old. Whereas a lot of women in the West don't start theirs until they're 13 or 14. And then there's some European, Scandinavian women who don't even get menses until they're 16 or 15. So again, it depends on the person, but it can happen at the age of 9. And again, it's when the blood flows from the vagina. And also, there is no limit as to how many years a woman may bleed. Now, I know you women, some of you have been told that if once you turn 50 years old, you're considered old. So if you got a period, it ain't no period. Well, this is a lie. It doesn't matter the age. If a woman experiences blood flowing from her vagina, she is considered to be menstruating, even if she were 100 years old. So again, this is another misconception that men tell you. I've heard this so many times. Oh, Sister Laila, I was taught by the Imam that since I'm 50 years old, I don't have to wear hijab, and then my period is no longer a period. I said, what? Astaghfirullah. You're wrong on both accounts. If you're 100 years old and and blood is coming from your vagina, that's a period. There is no limit as to how old you can be to have one. You have it until it stops. When it stops, that's when it stops. Okay? And also, what are the requirements for blood to be considered menstrual blood? And this is a big question. Many of you were told that the maximum number of days to bleed is a certain amount. Okay? This is not correct. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us that a woman's menses is determined by the color of the blood, not the number of days that she's bleeding. Because guess what? A woman's body changes. You can't tell me that just because it's the 5th of the month and my period don't usually come until the 10th that this is not a period. That's not correct. A woman's body changes due to her emotions. It's called PMS. And that's what brothers don't understand because they don't suffer with it. Women go through PMS. Our moods and our mood swings control our reproductive system. Okay? My period can start on the 5th of this month and it can start the 20th next month. Okay? So it's not determined by the dates that it occurs. The prophet said, when you see blood flowing from out of your vagina, look at the color of it. If it's one of these colors, then it's considered a period. If it's dark, then it's a period. If it's red, it's a period. If it's yellow, and you women know what that yellow color is, it's still a period. And the muddy color is that brownish color. And you women know what I'm talking about. It's a real dirty color. I hate that color. Most women can't stand that color. It's the color of brown. It looks like defecation sometimes. If you see that flowing out of your vagina, any of these colors, it doesn't matter what date it is, you're on your period. I don't care if your period stopped last week and it started up again this week. If you look down there and see those colors flowing, the key is flowing. You're on your period, sweetheart. Okay? Where's my evidence? Where's the proof that this crazy woman named Laila Nasheeba is speaking the truth? Because I was told that if it's not my date, then it's not my blood. Well, it's based on a hadith. Whereas Fatima, the daughter of Abu Habash, she had a prolonged flowing of blood. She went to the prophet and asked her, she said, "Oh prophet, am I on my period or what? I'm just this bleed, something is flowing out of me." He said, "Look at the color of it. If it's the color of, if it's dark in color, or red in color, or yellow in color, or muddy, then you are on your period. And if it's any of those colors, then do not pray. But if it's not those colors, if it's like a clear liquid coming out of you or something, then go ahead, make wudu and pray. Okay? Does everybody understand that? So that hadith there determines that the menstrual is determined by the color of the blood, not the number of days in which a woman is bleeding or has bled. And I hope this is clear to all of you sisters. Okay? And again, there's no time limit. There is nothing from Islam that says that there's a certain time limit to bleed. The woman is considered to be on her period until what is flowing from her vagina is no longer any color at all. In other words, until it turns white or clear. And you sisters know what I'm talking about. In the beginning of your menses, it may start off being yellow. Then it'll turn red. Then it'll get darker. Then it'll turn that old dirty, muddy color. Well, then it'll go back to being yellow. You are still on your period until you can stick a piece of toilet paper up there and it comes out clear, no color at all. That's when your period is over. And it doesn't matter if it took 10 days. It doesn't matter if it took 15 days. It doesn't matter if it took 20 days to stop. And that's based on, again, the hadith of Aisha. Aisha tells us that the women would send her boxes with yellow stained cotton, asking if they were off their period. And she would tell them, stop rushing. Stop rushing. Just wait until it comes back pure white. So again, you sisters, stop rushing. Let your body run its course. And again, a woman's body changes based on her moods, her stress level. You may bleed for 5 days this month, but then next month you could be stressed out about your job and bleed 10 days. The month after that, your husband could tell you he's going to divorce you or get another wife. And guess what? You don't bleed at all. Then the month after that, it comes back 20 days. So again, don't rush it. Just wait until the color turns clear. Does everybody understand that? And again, yellow is usually marks the ending of the period. Usually when a woman's period is ending, it turns yellow. That yellow is still part of the period. Wait till that yellow ends. And you stick some tissue up there and it comes back clear, then you can go ahead and take your ghusl and assume your prayers and stuff. And I want to also stress the following, because I get a lot of questions about this. Once your period ends, it's over. If 2 or 3 days later you see some yellow discharge, but it's not flowing out of you, you happen to go to the bathroom and look and see that there's some yellow discharge in your underwear, but it's not running out of you like your period does, guess what? That's not your menses. That's what we talked about in the previous class. That prosthetic fluid, the way that the body cleanses itself naturally. You may have had relations with your husband or something. Okay, or maybe your body is cleansing itself of some impurities up there. So that's not considered part of the menses. That's considered the results of the body cleansing or prosthetic fluid. And in that case, you follow what we talked about wudu. You simply wash your private parts and make wudu before you pray. Is that clear? Because again, your period could stop today. And you can have relations with your husband, and then next day or the day after you see, oh my God, there's some yellow in my underwear. But it's not flowing. It's not running out of me. It's just a yellow stain or whatnot. Well, that's the body, and you realize it's kind of wet down there. That's the body cleansing itself. That is not your period. Once the period stops, but that's the key. You have to wait till the period stops completely. And then if you see that yellow, which you women know what I'm talking about, brothers can't relate to it, but the women can. That's the body cleansing. And that's based on the following hadith. Everything I teach you is from what the Prophet. Listen to what Atiyah said. She said, after we were pure from our menses, we did not consider the yellow or muddy discharge that came a few days later to be anything. But again, after your period was over, and that happens because sometimes it can be a darker color than yellow. Perhaps you and your husband were a little bit rough, so it could be darker than yellow. Everybody know what I'm talking about. You and your husband can get rough sometimes. That's not a period. What goes up must come down. The laws of gravity. And again, the brothers can't get graphic with you like I can because they don't have a menses. But I can. Whatever goes up, sisters, must come down. That's the laws of gravity. Remember that. So that's why you sisters, after your menses a couple of days, you may see that yellow after you and your husband get busy. That's just the laws of gravity. But the key is the period must have ended completely. Okay? All right. And again, there is no maximum number of days for a woman to bleed. In fact, all statements that you may have been told or you may have read from Google Islam about this topic are not based on any hadiths from our Prophet or his companions. That's some man's opinion. Again, the Prophet told us that the period is determined by the color of the blood, not the number of days. And again, every woman's body is different. You may bleed for 3 days. I may bleed for 7 days. She may bleed for 2 weeks or more. So again, there's no cutoff. And anybody that told you that is not a person of the Sunnah. Everybody claims to be a Sunnah follower. The true people of the Sunnah are rare and few. The true people of the Sunnah do not read or teach from books written by Imam so-and-so. The true people of the Sunnah, the Salafi, the Salaf, they don't teach that way. Salaf means from the companions, the understanding of the companions and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A true person of the Sunnah would be teaching like I am right now, directly from the authentic hadith, not from no book written by Sheikh come a dime a dozen who don't know what he talking about half the time. And definitely not Sheikh Google, because Sheikh Google, he can tell you everything about the Kafir world. But I'm here to tell you, Sheikh Google don't know nothing about Islam. So you definitely don't rely on nothing that he says. Okay? So where's my proof that there is no maximum number of days? Well, Salama, this is the Salaf. You call yourself Salafi, then why ain't you telling me what the Salaf had to say? Salama asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about a woman with a prolonged flow of blood. He said she should look for the number of days and nights that she normally bleeds and the time of month it occurs. And then leave the prayer during those days afterwards. Now I'm going to explain this hadith in more detail tomorrow. It's called istihada in Arabic. A lot of women don't understand what istihada means. Prolonged does not mean irregular. A lot of Muslim women interpret istihada to mean I have an irregular cycle. My period began today, this month on the 5th, but next month it came on the 12th. No, that's not istihada. Istihada means I am bleeding over 30 days. It's been 40 days, 50 days, and I'm still bleeding. This is a danger for women. If you're bleeding like that, you need to get in touch with your doctor. That's usually a sign of cancer or fibroids or a problem. So we'll talk about that more. But the bottom thing I want you to remember about this hadith is it's proof that there's no maximum number of days for a woman to bleed. And we'll talk more about istihada tomorrow, okay? Now, where does post-childbirth bleeding fall in this? Well, whenever a woman gives birth to a child, she bleeds that way from there too. Okay? And it doesn't matter if the child survived or not. Some women, unfortunately, may give birth to a stillborn child. Still, your body's going to go through that bleeding. When this happens, it's considered the same as a menses, which means you're not allowed to pray or fast. However, with post-childbirth bleeding, there is a maximum number of days. The maximum number of days is set to 40. And again, who set the day? Not Sheikh Google. The Prophet Muhammad did. Salama says, during the lifetime of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the post-childbirth woman would be confined for 40 days. So that's the maximum. So if there were a maximum for your period, the Prophet would have told us that. He told us about the maximum for the childbirth bleeding. Okay? So if you give birth to a child, then every woman is different. When I had my daughter, I only bled for 2 weeks. That's it. My bleeding stopped after 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, I took a ghusl and assumed my duties. But I do know other women, when my sister had her child, she bled the whole 40 days. So everyone is different. And I know some sisters, they only bled for a week. So again, every woman's body is different. But the maximum number of days is 40. If 40 days has passed and you're still bleeding from having a baby, you just simply just take a ghusl and assume your duties. Okay? So now what I want to do to end today's lecture, we're going to speak about what are the forbidden actions, things that a woman cannot do while she's on her period. What are the things that a woman cannot do if she's bleeding from having a baby? Well, every one of you need to write it down. Number one, you cannot fast or pray on your period. Okay? No fasting, no praying. And again, your period is not determined. I don't care if it takes 2 weeks. If you're bleeding for 2-3 weeks, you wait till it ends. And then you resume. Look at the color of the blood. If that flowing blood that's coming out of your vagina is red or dark or yellow or that muddy color, you cannot, fast or pray. Okay, and this is based on the hadith where one of the companions said, he asked Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, why must we make up the fast that we miss due to our periods, but we don't have to make up our prayers? She said, because the Prophet told us that. We were ordered to make up our fast, but we do not make up the prayers. Remember, Allah doesn't hold you accountable for what you couldn't pray. So again, don't question what Allah says. If a woman is on her period, she has to make up the fasting for Ramadan that she missed. But she doesn't have to make up any of her prayers. Okay? So no praying your ritual prayer while you're on your period, and no fasting. Also, a woman cannot engage in sexual relations with her husband. That doesn't mean that your husband cannot fondle you. You can kiss your husband, touch your husband, fondle him and all that, but you cannot allow the two private parts to touch. We have the hadith where a woman asked Aisha, what is off limits for me and my husband when I'm on my period? She said, you can do whatever you want with your husband, except allow the two private parts to touch. The same thing. So if your husband wants to fondle you and do whatever else with you, he can. And you can do whatever you want to him. Just do not allow the two private parts to touch when you're on your period. Okay? So thus, guys, those are the things that we need to understand about the menses. Again, every woman's body is different. We bleed at different times of the month, and we bleed for different lengths of time. But you look at the color of the blood. If it's red, if it's dark, if it's yellow, if it's brown, that's your period. And again, I don't care how long it takes. You wait until you stick tissue up in you and it comes out clear. Until it comes out clear, you are still on your period. And then after your period has completed, then you can resume your regular duties. But if a couple of days later you see some yellow discharge, don't panic. As long as it's not flowing out of your vagina, it's considered what the body cleans naturally. And just simply wash it, your private part, and make wudu before you pray. Okay, and tomorrow what we're going to do is to speak about the istihada, the prolonged flow, and what to do in that case. Okay? All right, so we'll stop right here for today. I want you guys to review this PowerPoint. Want you guys to review this lecture. Again, try to get more Muslims to join, because this is the basics that every Muslim should know. Unfortunately, most Muslim women don't know anything about a menses. You've been taught Islam by men who don't know what a menses is. They use all these Arabic terms and give you the opinions of these so-called imams and scholars when they should have been taking it from the Prophet's wives. Salama, Aisha, they were detailed about this. So we'll stop right here for today. If you got Sunnahfollowers, protectors of the Sunnah.